Guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, episode 69. LOL. We are children of the Boundary Riders podcast. Have a lot to talk about today. We've got a little bit of announcement to start off things. We'll look at the breaking news of the suspensions and injury front. Also, a big one, we're going to be doing our rest of season predictions. Of course, now all the buys are over. Everything is at parity, so we'll be looking at the rest of the season. We'll be looking at Port Adelaide as well. Obviously a Port fan, my brother, so we'll talk about them, our tips, and of course AFL fantasy breakdown. So let's not waste any more of your time. Let's roll the intro and get straight into it.
And then Rankin from the pocket. Don't tell me, Isaac Rankin!
Yeah. He's just got the license for a brothel.
Well, I think Gather Round's going to be AFL this next season. Gets at the handle at the back. Nick Dankos to get the pies home. He's done it.
So guys, welcome back. Brother here is nearly always, because you've been in the last 2 weeks, back in the squad. We'll talk about Port Adelaide in a minute, but a pretty disappointing weekend on your front.
Yeah, it's just another disappointing week to be a Port Adelaide supporter.
Yeah. The reason why I want to say a little bit of announcement, first of all, by the way, the Swans won, so don't need to
Well, what a shocker, another win.
Another great win on the board.
Yeah.
We're going to keep on going, though. I'm not going to fucking get too ahead of myself. We're doing very well. The announcement I wanted to say is actually not so much... I don't know if you guys would be happy about it, but I guess we are. Well, I am. I haven't told you yet. We got our first pay today from YouTube.
Oh, perfect.
I'll talk to you more about it later, but yeah, we got our first pay. So fucking sick. Anyway, we did also release out, because we're recording this on Monday. Sorry, this is coming out on Thursday, but we've got a couple of videos coming out. Whatever, we'll cut some clips from this. But, yeah, the video essay for the AFL journalism video just came out, 2.5 hours ago, basically, 2 hours ago. It's received a lot of good attention so far, not really anything bad. Not like the... By the way, the people recently tuning into the AFL commentary video... Whoa, that's hit a new fucking community. Fuck me. If you go click the newest comments on that video, holy crap, there's some fucking out there people. Anyway, the new video about the AFL journalism stuff, I thought was something a very interesting topic that a lot of people aren't talking about. I guess no one's really ever liked a journalist, let's be honest.
No.
It's not ever, but especially nowadays. I think a lot of people do realise that they do use a lot of like crappy tactics to get you engaged in their content, whether that be through rage bait, clickbait, which I mentioned in the video. But yeah, I mean, you saw the video. Did you... I obviously got you to usually review most of the video essays that I do in case there's anything massively wrong, and then you miss it, and then I get a comment saying, "Oh, this is poorly researched because North Melbourne made an extra final." Yeah, did they win anything? No. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I make some mistakes, I'm sorry. But yeah, anyway. You don't really follow a lot of like other journalism outside of the football space, so you probably would understand, like, I guess maybe since we've been doing this sort of stuff, we've kind of more noticed the different sort of tactics they do use. Because basically we're trying to make fun of it, basically, with the flog of the week. But yeah, you've seen some of the comments, you were a bit surprised, were you, that you saw a lot of like likes for the video, a lot of comments?
Yeah, it has only been out for a couple of hours, so you can't really say anything.
Yeah, who knows? We're making
there's
a bunch
always
of
going to
hate,
be a turn. Yeah, they could turn.
Who knows? Maybe one of the journalists will find out, be like, "Excuse me, I did not say a sexual remark to my fellow colleague, Megan Barnard." Imagine if Tom Morris responds. That would be so sick. Come on, Tom, please. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe there could be some negative stuff coming through, but yeah, overly positive to start off with, and I really like that. Obviously, I do like the constructive criticism as well, when people like say, "Oh, this thing was a bit wrong" or whatever. Or, you know, with the North Melbourne video, I did make a mistake on saying that they didn't make the 2014 prelim as well. And apparently Wayne Carey wasn't the youngest ever captain. I found that research, and apparently it wasn't. So I am sorry for that. It feels like some people think that I go out there to do it deliberately. It's like, no, I'm sorry. That's the research that I did, and that's what I found. But anyway, I guess I got it wrong. So
really, you should be a part of the journalism and the AFL.
if I get one fucking comment that says, "Oh, research, that's funny considering your research," I'm going to fucking scream. Because I'm one guy in my fucking room who works 40 hours a week, does this as a hobby. That's their fucking job to get it fucking right. If I get one stupid comment that says that, I'm going to fucking blow a gasket, I swear to God. The one thing I did want to talk about, there was one comment that I did want to talk about, which was there was a couple of comments that were like very fucking, oh, Kelly Underwood sucks because she's a woman. And it's like, fucking, you're an idiot, bro. It's not because she's a woman. Okay? If you think that's the only reason if you think that's the reason that Kelly Underwood sucks, you're a fucking moron. And I stand by the fact you need a fucking helmet. I stand by that fact, okay? But there was one person, this is what I hate about this, like, identity politics sort of bullshit. We'll get off this in a minute, but someone, like, said that I was sexist because I made a point of, like, Kelly Underwood is not, it makes mistakes. And it did kind of annoy me because I was like, for one person said that I was pandering to women, another one says that I'm sexist to women. So, what I can't win. Now, I'll be interested to see if anyone gets angry at me because I made points about Caroline Wilson. I don't think anyone likes Caroline Wilson, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Anyway, and some person before made like an annoying comment saying, oh, Kelly Underwood's the greatest. She's great on Insiders, or whatever the fuck she does on ABC. Hey, bro, she doesn't commentate on fucking Insiders, you moron. It's about her commentary. Oh. Anyway, we're going to get off the comments, because that just shits me. If you want to listen to me rant about comments for fucking half an hour, we'll listen to our Twitter's podcast. That's where basically it's all saved for. Anyway, let's move on. So, yeah, I really appreciate the support on the video essays. I think the next one we're going to do, though, is about Hawthorn. I think we're going to do, like, I know a couple of the team ones that I've done lately are, like, a lot more on the negative side, I guess. I guess the Swans one was positive when they broke the drought. The North Melbourne one was quite negative, like a bit of a positive at the end.
And the St Kilda one.
And the St Kilda one was very negative. But I don't go out there trying to make a hate video on the team. I'm trying to look at it as like, okay, this team has done very poorly. What do they need to improve? Or what pointing out the fact that they've made mistakes on. This one's going to be a lot more about Hawthorn, how in the last 2 years, from basically the point of people calling out that Hawthorn were essentially tanking to now it could even be a chance to make the 8. So it's more of like a rise of Hawthorn. So this one's going to be a lot more of a look at how good they've done rather than how poor they've been. So that's where it's kind of going to look at. So for any Hawthorn fans, get excited for that. If you're not a Hawthorn fan, make sure to watch it because, I don't know, give me some fucking support for Christ's sakes. Let's move on though. We'll talk about a couple of suspensions and injuries over the weekend. So first of all, we do have the suspension I wanted to take a look at was Patrick Dangerfield. He was given a 1-match ban for a dangerous tackle. He has just challenged it. So you guys will know, I guess, by the time this comes out, what happens. I think it's going to get a week. I don't think you change it after he locked his arms in.
Yeah, I think that based on this year, you can't let that be free to play. You can't. If they're going to take head concussion seriously, you have to leave that as a week.
I'm gonna let it slide that you said head concussion. But anyway,
whatever.
But no, I think that he's very lucky that Sam Walsh didn't get concussed, because if he did, he would have been in serious trouble. Like, I remember we were streaming it, and you said that's 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah,
You're still a little bit surprised it wasn't. I think if it was a concussed, he would have got 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Sam Walsh pretty much bounced straight back up.
And he played one of the best games.
Yeah, he played one of the better games. He was second best on the ground according to the votes, the Battle Riders votes, of course. The best medal in the game. I think we're going to do a promo for that, like, later in the year. I think that'd be fucking sick. Like, get some, like, players of, like, saying, like, oh, you know, it's really exciting, Brownlow night, and just change it to Boundary Riders medal night. That'd be kind of sick. Yeah, I don't think he's going to get away with it, though. I think that's going to be given a week. I don't think you can really just change that one, unfortunately. I think now if you pin both arms and don't give a player a chance to, like, brace for impact somehow, it's just unfortunate that Dangerfield's probably going to get a week. I understand why Geelong are doing it, because they're kind of at a point now where they need him out there, even though he didn't really play. He played okay against the Blues in the first half and a bit, but I think his fitness just wasn't there to play the whole game out very well. So, yeah, I think that's something that will concern the Cats, but I don't think he'll get away with it. I don't think he really should, to be honest, based on this year. Another one that was not a suspension, but rather a fine, which was to Stephen May. So, if you don't know, he got a free kick on the weekend against North Melbourne for a dangerous tackle, which what happened was that he was taken to ground. His head hit the ground there was not much contact in the ground. He grabbed his head, and the umpire did not pay a high free kick or dangerous tackle free kick until he saw Stephen May holding his head.
Yeah.
I think it was Nathan Buckley today, which is Monday, said that it should have been a week. And at this point, I know maybe a bit harsh for whatever, but I think it should have been. I think that's crap. He shouldn't have fucking grabbed his head. I don't think he went off at the time. So clearly there wasn't any sort of concussion protocols looked at. So I think that's that's crap from
Yeah.
the AFL. I understand that it's very hard for them to give a week for staging. I don't think they've done it.
No, they've never given us a week.
I know they've given Kane Corns a fine a while back. I know everyone brings that up every time he says something stupid on Footy Classified or something. Well, you're a fucking stager, shut up, bro. But, yeah, it's something that I think the AFL seriously need to take a look at, because I think staging is definitely starting to evolve. It's starting to rear its head in the game every now and then. Obviously, with the high tackles, I do agree that that's kind of slowed down a lot more. A lot less players are trying to look for that high free kick as much. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I've noticed it, yeah.
It's not as so much as like everyone's trying to lower their arm. I don't know, maybe because Joel Selwood retired, it's a little bit less. But yeah, it just feels like a lot less players are doing that now. But yeah, I think that players now are definitely over-exaggerating head contact onto the ground to get a free kick.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be allowed. Now, look, the umpire did make a mistake in that game. I 100% agree, and he shouldn't be, let go for that. But even if that is the mistake made, when you see it the next day on when they do the MRO, you need to look at that and say, he hasn't gone off for a head knock injury, so clearly the club isn't concerned about the head knock. If it was at the point of the pain that he had, because he was grabbing his head, like Sam Walsh when he had his head hit into the turf on Dangerfield, he didn't grab his head.
And he didn't even come off, I don't think.
No, he didn't come off either.
No.
But Stephen May grabs his head like he seriously hurt his head, like seriously could have a concussion, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
That should be a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, I don't know if it ever will happen, but I think they probably should have deserved a week.
I don't know who said it during the week after it happened, but if you're gonna do that, clutch your head and all that, something like that, even if it was like Stephen May, take him off for 20 minutes. That's why it should, in my opinion, be an independent doctor.
Yeah, I'm very surprised the AFL was so against it too when they brought that up.
That's the one prime example of why it should be, because they will take him off, even if he's faking it. He can come off and say, "Oh, I wanted to get the free kick." You say that to the doctor, it'd be like, "Well,
fair enough.
You're 20 minutes. You're coming off for 20 minutes anyway because you clutched your head like you're claiming you've got a head knock.
Yeah.
So you're taking 20 minutes, and if you want to explain that to Simon Goodwin, go ahead. But if you're not, the doctor will be going to tell him that. The independent doctor will go, "Oh well, he clutched his head. He claimed that he got a head knock. So as per the AFL rules, he's off for 20 minutes."
Yeah, I mean, it would stop players from doing it.
Stop
players from doing it because, especially if it's an important player as Stephen May was, he was very good on the weekend. Yeah. If he was off for 20 minutes, who knows if Nick Larkey kicks 2 or 3 goals in that time?
And they win that game. So it could It could have cost them that game if he comes off.
Let's not go to clickbaity too far, but yeah, I mean, I do get what you mean.
If he comes off for the last 20 minutes in a game like that, it could cost them a game.
Yeah,
and it could cost them a final spot. Could cost them a grand final. You never know.
Yeah, well, I think Melbourne are going down at the moment.
Yeah, well,
I do get what you mean, exactly. And if it was a player like a Carlton player, a Collingwood player, a Sydney player right now, if they did that sort of stuff and then just, got a free kick from it and didn't come off, that could potentially mean big spots in the finals, the end of the year. But I do agree, that was just... At first, I thought, he's not going to get a week. I never thought he would. But I think it probably should have been.
Yeah.
He only got it. And the funny thing is, he got an $1,875 fine, which is a very weird number. I don't know. I'm sure there's some reason for that, but that's what he got. And Zach Butters, I don't know why they didn't give him a week. He's been charged, I think, 3 times now this year for suspension. They gave him a $10,000 fine. So, I'm just like, fucking, I don't know. Stephen May surely earned enough money. They could have given him like a $4,000 fine. He would have been fine.
Well, I'm thinking like Butters, it's like, well, that's probably that's not even his weekly paycheck.
Yeah, probably not for Port. Yeah, he'd probably be up there for Port. So yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Yeah, moving on from the suspension stuff, there's a couple of injuries we want to talk about. So first of all was Alex Pearce. This was actually Sunday afternoon between the Gold Coast and Fremantle. It came off late. I did mention it in the review with a forearm injury. It does see that they are still anxiously waiting Fremantle to see if he'll be okay to play against the Swans. That would be a massive loss for them if he was out.
Yeah.
Because he's basically their general back there. Obviously, Sydney, even though obviously Joel Amartey had that 9-goal game.
He had 1 disposal last week.
Yeah, well, other players were in. It's a team effort, Jack. It's a team fucking effort. But what I'm saying is, he's like, obviously Sydney's tall forwards aren't like, you know, the Curnow and Mackay, but he obviously does set them up back there.
Yeah.
And he would be a massive loss for them. And I think this is a big game for Fremantle as well, because if they can pip the Swans, which they have done at the SCG, I think the last time they played them, this was a couple of years ago though. Oh no, it was last year I think against, the SCG, I'm pretty sure. But that was when they were in pretty poor form. But I mean, they do have a good record. They do have a recent record. So, you know, Fremantle, if they go down there, beat the Swans, that'd be a massive win. But it's going to be very hard to see them do it without Alex Pearce. So that'd be a bad loss for them. Another one was Tom Hawkins. This was way back on Friday. It does seem that Tom Hawkins is pretty optimistic as he awaits results on the scans to determine whether he can continue his AFL career. Well, that's not very good to say. that's not very fucking optimistic. Fucking hell. I guess that's just clickbaity AFL.com.au sort of like a subheading or whatever.
Yeah.
Look, I think it would be very surprised. Like, look, even if he does come back, I feel like this is his last year. I don't think it's going to be.
It seems like this year injuries have got to him.
Yeah, it feels like this needs to be a reset for Geelong. I guess we'll talk about that in the rest of the season predictions with Geelong. But I think at this point, they had a massive start to the year, obviously. They were just unbeatable until about round 7, and then they got beaten, and then since then they've only won one game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's something that Geelong at this point, I feel like they kind of went, okay, we had a down year last year. We can bounce back now. I think now they've kind of realised, okay, we need to go, you know, build this list again a little bit better. They don't have to rebuild.
They just need some depth and more
Yeah.
experience of playing some of the
some of the youth players. Because, I mean, Ollie Dempsey, even this year, with all the, obviously the injuries last year and stuff, from all that and all the players this year coming in, and that, like, from the draft and that, they've only really played Ollie Dempsey. I don't really think there's been a lot of other young kids coming through, like playing full games. I mean, Shannon Neal played a couple of games.
Toby Conway.
Toby Conway. But even then, they're not really trusting him just yet.
Yeah.
I think he'll definitely take over for Reece Stanley. I think Shannon Neal will probably take over for when Tom Hawkins does eventually retire. So I do think they've got a couple there. But I think at this point, they just need to get games into them. So I don't know about Tom Hawkins. We'll see how that plans out. The last one that I wanted to take a look at, which was surprising, I didn't really know about this, but Tom Lynch... as it's been confirmed that he's had a minor strain in his opposite hamstring from the previous injury. This was with Lynch exiting against Hawthorn with general soreness. Richmond says that he will miss the club's next 2 matches against Carlton and then Fremantle. So that's really unfortunate. He just can't really get himself going this year. He hasn't been able to do it for the last 2 seasons now.
Yeah.
I think you almost put him on ice at this point. There's no point trying to get him back for the rest of the season. If they're not going to be able to really do much, hit the draft, see what they can get from that, and then try and go on from next year. Because if he can play a full season, I don't think Richmond finish bottom of the ladder.
No, he can kick you 50 goals if he plays the whole season. So they 50 goals for Richmond, they wouldn't finish bottom.
Yeah. Even Nick Larkey last year fucking got North Melbourne out of bottom spot, basically single-handedly. Yeah. So I think Tom Lynch can definitely do that at his stage, even though he's a little bit older in his career. Yeah, so that's basically the injury news and that sort of stuff, guys. So, with that being said, of course, now all the buys are done. We're hitting into round 16. So, everyone's been talking about the rest of the season predictions. What's going to happen with the rest of the ladder? So on screen right now is the current ladder as it sits at the end of round 15. The Swans obviously still being on top, North Melbourne down the bottom. First of all, I'm going to go over my AFL ladder prediction for the rest of the season. So first of all, I've got the Swans still sitting on top. Carlton in second, Collingwood third, Essendon fourth. The Lions jump all the way up into fifth. Freo in sixth, Bulldogs seventh, Geelong in eighth. Unfortunately for Hawthorn fans, I've got them in 9th, Giants 10th, Port Adelaide 11th, Melbourne 12th, Adelaide 13th, Gold Coast 14th, St Kilda 15th, West Coast Eagles 16th, North Melbourne, which may surprise a few people, moving into 17th, and then I've got Richmond getting the wooden spoon. So what have you got for your ladder predictions?
So I've went the Swans to finish on top, Carlton second, Collingwood third, the Lions going to finish fourth.
Coming from the clouds.
Yeah, coming from the clouds to finish in the top 4. Essendon to 5th. The Giants 6th. Geelong 7th. And the Dockers to round out the 8. And then I've got the Bulldogs 9th. Hawthorn at 10th. The Gold Coast at 11th. Port at 12th. Melbourne at 13. The Crows at 14. The Saints 15th. West Coast 16th. North Melbourne 17th. And Richmond in bottom spot.
Okay, so we've both got Richmond winning the Spoon, the Swans winning the minor premiership as well. So we've got a few different. Now, what I wanted to look at first, we're not going to break down every single team. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the teams that are currently in the 8, but we are predicting that they're going to miss. And then we're going to take a look at the teams that are currently out of the 8, but will be making it in our predictions. And then just a couple of other teams that people may wonder. If you're really wondering why a certain team is somewhere, just leave a comment in the comment section and I'll try to explain why I've got a certain team where and whatever. Because I've still got the screenshots sort of saved. And maybe even I'll post them on Instagram. I've got 2 teams who are currently in the 8 that I've got missing. So first of all, I want to talk about the Giants. So looking at the Giants, their away games going forward for the rest of the season are quite tough. They've got the Crows, the Tigers, the Demons, the Lions, and the Bulldogs. And I really only have them winning one game, which would be the Tigers. And that's at the MCG, which is also not an easy ask. They've got the Crows at Adelaide Oval this week, so that's a really interesting one. We'll talk about that in the tips as well. But that's going to be a tough game. They've got the Melbourne at the MCG, the Lions at the Gabba, that's going to be tough, and then the Bulldogs. That's going to basically see if they do make the finals in round 24. I just think that it's just going to be tough. They're not really playing that consistent. We obviously saw at the end of last year, they obviously came out of nowhere and almost got into a grand final. So maybe if Adam Kingsley can get them into some form, they'll be all right. It looked like some good signs coming from them 2 weeks ago against Port Adelaide, but the Swans last week just looked a little bit off again. So I think the Giants have to prove to me personally that they are ready to go back into finals. Who knows, maybe they drop off this year and then bounce back next year, but right now I just see them missing. And the other team was Port Adelaide. So I think most people at this stage will have Port Adelaide missing the 8. Looking at it right now, the last 5 weeks of their season is really tough. They play 3 teams in the top 8, and the other 2 teams they play is Melbourne away and the Crows in the showdown. I've got them beating one team, which is Sydney, and the only reason why I've got them beating Sydney is because Sydney can't beat Port Adelaide. We have a very bad record against Port Adelaide, so that's the only game I've got them maybe stealing, and I think Sydney at the end of the day are going to lose some games towards the end of the season. But Port Adelaide right now, they're in shocking form. I think maybe they'll respond in the next couple of weeks, but overall, I think that the team that they have right now is not playing good enough to make finals, and I think at this point Ken Hinkley may even think that his job may be gone, so I'll be interested to see how much Port Adelaide's team put in to try and keep Ken Hinkley's job, but at this point that's kind of my fall off there for Port Adelaide as well. So you had one team missing the 8 from the prediction. I think it was Port Adelaide as well.
Yeah, so mine was Port Adelaide. Yeah, they would drop out and the Lions would come in. The reasoning for Port Adelaide I've got... Yeah, with that last 5 games of the season, to be honest, I don't think they win any of the last 5 games. I really don't think they beat the Swans. I think the Power only win 2 more games for the season. I think they'll win this week with a response game.
Yeah.
And I think they only beat Richmond. I just don't think they can win any other games. Like the Gold Coast, that's in Gold Coast. They won't win that.
Then they've got the Bulldogs at Adelaide Oval after the St Kilda this week. So, yeah, I mean, 2 wins from now, they wouldn't make the finals. And that's kind of where I've got them as well. I mean, I've got them beating the Swans. But other than that, I'm with you that I've only picked them winning 2 other games.
Yeah.
So even if they were to win a 3rd game, like I said, I've still got them finishing 11th. So I think that's fair enough. Looking at it though, teams that are currently out of the 8, but I think will make the finals is Brisbane and the Bulldogs. So first of all, Brisbane, I think that they're going to make it basically on the fact that they are in hot form at the moment. Looking at it, other than Collingwood, their home games are actually way tougher than their away games. And why that's a good thing is because I think if they were playing harder teams away, I think they would struggle. But because they're playing the better teams at home, I feel like they can beat them. They'll be going in favourite. So looking at it right now, they've got Melbourne this week, the Crows at Adelaide Oval, they've got the Swans, the Giants, and then the Bombers, all at the Gabba. So I've got them winning all of those games. Yeah. Even though the Swans, I know they're obviously in hot form, that's going to be a ripper game. It's round 19 for anyone wondering. That's going to be a ripper game. But at the moment, their away games are against West Coast. They can win that. They've got the Gold Coast. That'll be an interesting one. They've got St Kilda. They'll win that. And then they've got Collingwood, which, I mean, I think they lose that probably. If they win all those games at home, I've picked them only losing one more game for the rest of the season, the Brisbane Lions. So they still don't make the top 4. I've got Essendon making it there, unlike you. But yeah, Brisbane are in hot form. They've finally hit that form. It's taken them a very long time. But I think Chris Fagan kept the faith. You got to give him credit for that. He never wavered, which is good to see from a coach. And yeah, you got to give Brisbane credit. They're back. They're a really good side at the moment. So I think the Brisbane right now are a team to, be a big force going into finals as well. You wouldn't want to play them in the final series. And the Bulldogs as well. This is a bit of a tough one. I think if they are at their best form, they will run into the finals. But if they just have a stop-start, as they've been doing for a lot of this year, I don't know what's going to happen here. I've got them winning a lot of these games. Looking at it right now, they've got North Melbourne twice. They play 4 of the top 8 teams, but 2 of them are GWS and Port Adelaide, who I think are going to drop out. So that's what I'm saying. And a nice run home. Only hard games are against Sydney and Carlton, which I've got them losing. They do play Geelong, and I've actually got the Bulldogs winning that away from home down in Geelong. But honestly, that's a 50-50 game depending on form.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm kind of looking on that front. The Bulldogs making it, and the Lions, you've only got one team jumping into the 8 from here. And that's the Lions, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've got the Lions, and I'm with you the same way that I think they only lose one more game for the season. I do have that as the same as you against Collingwood. The 2 players that could change this whole team, and I think could get them to a prelim, is Will Ashcroft, who could come back this week, in the form of Charlie Cameron. If Charlie Cameron can find the form, their forward line could be back to where it was last season.
Well, considering Eric Hipwood's probably in the best form of his bloody career at the moment. Joe Danaher's playing pretty well. If Charlie Cameron can jump into that as well, they're going to be a hard team to beat.
Yeah.
And I mean, they could even do every chance of beating Collingwood as well if they're in hot form at the MCG. So I tend to agree with you. So I just want to take a look at a couple of other teams here. First of all is the Swans. Now, you may see that the Swans have got, I think they're 19-4 on my list, so they've got 3 other losses coming through. So looking at the rest of their season, the next 3 weeks, I do think that they can win. But the rest of their season is a bit tough. They have quite a tough run home, and I also think that if Sydney are, getting to the point at the end of the season where they are pretty clear on top, they'll start to rest some players. Like, I don't think they'll play Grundy through the whole season if they can give him a week off. Yeah. Or some of the midfielders, especially if they have them fit. The 2 losses that I do have them against is the Brisbane Lions and the Bombers. So that's a really big couple of games. They're both away, so I think that they may drop them. They've also got Collingwood at the SCG as well, so that's also a tough one. And the other one that I did say earlier, which was Port Adelaide, that's the bogey side. So they've got them losing that. But of course, that could change. So now on to Hawthorn. So luckily for them, they have a pretty good run home. They play the bottom 3 teams in West Coast, North Melbourne and Richmond. They do face 5 of the top 8 sides, but will likely go in 50-50 against Geelong, Fremantle and the GWS Giants. The other 2 games that they play are against Collingwood and Carlton. So they're going in with great form, but right now, I do see the only game that's really going to be separating this is next week. To them getting into the 8 is against Geelong as well. So I've got Geelong in the 8 and Hawthorn just missing out by a game. But of course, if that was to change around, that may be the difference between Hawthorn and Geelong, who makes the 8 there. Now looking at Geelong, 4 games in the Academia Park should keep them in the 8 in my opinion. I have them losing at home in one of those games against the Bulldogs. But of course, that does depend on form. On the run home, they only have 1 home game away from Geelong, which is against St Kilda, so I think they'll win that one. They only play 3 of the top 8 sides left in the competition, and that game against Hawthorn is a deal breaker for me, but if they beat the Bulldogs at home or get a win away that I haven't got them winning, then I think they will make finals. I do know that the Cats are in a pretty big form slump right now, but I just think at the moment that they've got enough games down in Geelong. Even if they do drop the game against the Bulldogs, I think they'll be able to make it. And if they do win that game against the Bulldogs, then I've got them making it pretty comfortably in the end.
Yeah, so we'll look at the Dogs, and I also want to take a look at the Giants, because they're around the mark, and
you've got them in the 8. And I haven't, so
the Dogs, because I think they're going to miss.
Yeah,
I think their run's a bit even in a way. Like they could win all the games that I think they could lose. To be honest, I've got them beating Geelong down at Academia Park, but I've got them also losing against the Swans in round 20. But not by a lot. I've got them losing against the Crows as it's at Adelaide Oval. Yeah, so they could easily have a good run.
Do you have them beating the Giants in the last game of the season?
Yeah, I do. It's just the inconsistency of the Dogs. You just don't know which one's going to show up. I'll look at the Giants, because obviously I've got them in the 8. I've got them actually winning a bit of their away games. I think they can beat Melbourne in Melbourne. They'll beat Richmond, and I think they win this week.
Yeah.
And the fact is that Sam Taylor obviously didn't play last week. I think Tom Green, if he can get back his early season form like he did last week, even though they lost, he
was their best player.
Yeah, so if they can start turning that around, I think that is a big help for them. They just got to find their form, I think. that they found at the start of the season and what everyone really predicted at the start of the year.
So, guys, that's basically all our predictions for the rest of the year. Like I said at the start, if you do have any sort of team you want us to let us know that we didn't really mention, just let us know down in the comments and I'll quickly respond. Or, I mean, you can respond to them as well. You have the access to the account, so you can respond to them as well if you have any sort of predictions or any ideas. If you agree or disagree, of course, make sure to let us know down below where you think some certain teams are going to finish. But that's basically all the predictions that we have for the rest of the year, and this, of course, is 100% right. We've just leaked the end of season ladder. I did anyway. You got a couple wrong. That's okay. Well, let's move on. And I want to talk about Port Adelaide because you're a big Port fan. They are obviously in big trouble. Last week, we went pretty hard on the Crows. So
let's just take a 180 and go down to Port Adelaide.
Yeah, let's just take out all the SA teams and we'll talk about Port Adelaide. So, of course, they had a pretty poor week last week. They had a pretty poor month. If it wasn't for their win against Hawthorn, I don't even know if Ken Hinkley would have his job right now.
I think also that the famous win of winning at Geelong.
Yeah, it did help too. They had a massive win at massive start to the season, and then they obviously have tapered off. So Port Adelaide, I think everyone kind of had them around the 8 this year, but not really pushing too far up. I think everyone had them around 8 position. Obviously, Ken Hinkley's job is basically reliant on their finals record here and on their finals, how they're going to go. But at this point, we don't even have him in the 8.
Yeah.
So clearly that's the end of his job. Now, look, well, one, do you think Ken Hinkley should be the coach next year?
No.
No.
He's had 12 years at the helm. And like some people, even today, I think Nathan Buckley on radio said that, why don't we see in about 5 or 6 weeks? It's like Port Adelaide fans have been waiting for 12 years under this coach. What's 6 weeks going to do? If he gets us to finals, he gives us to another semi-final and lose that? It's like Port Adelaide fans have been waiting and waiting and waiting.
On one side of it, though, where were they when he first came to the club?
Yes, but that was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
You know how many... Him, John Longmire, and Chris Scott are the only coaches that are still there 12 years on.
Yeah, I mean, both of them got
that
premierships.
club.
2 of them got premierships.
Yeah, and those 2 have had grand final appearances. We haven't got to a grand final in those 12 years.
Yeah.
And yes, he got us out of where the shittest time as a Port fan in the AFL, and he just hasn't had that the next step to get us to even up here in the premiership. Even Ross Lyon did that at St Kilda.
Yeah. What do you think about Port Adelaide fans booing him during the game?
I don't think that's right. I think that I know there's a lot of frustration around the ones in charge around like David Koch not getting rid of him after last year and re-signing him for 2 years when he got us to top 4, then got us straight out the finals. It's like, and with him and yeah.
Yeah, I think that Port Adelaide, ever since Ken Hinkley's been there, they've especially been able to beat around, like especially when they've been doing good in a season, they've been able to beat up the teams that are below them and maybe just on them, but teams above them they've struggled to beat.
They always have.
And especially in finals that, they've had a home final in 2020 against, was it 2021 or 2020?
2020 we played Richmond and we lost by a goal.
Yeah.
And then the year in 21 we got completely smashed by the Dogs.
Yeah. And they're both at home.
And they're both at home. And in the 2021 final series, obviously all Victorian teams couldn't be at home for the final series. So they had to travel, obviously, the whole time.
Yeah.
Especially, and also in the 2020 season.
Yeah.
Port Adelaide and Brisbane had home ground advantage the whole time.
And the one thing that you could say, like, obviously Chris Fagan had the pretty similar negative talk about him, the fact that he couldn't get him to a grand final or whatever, but he did that last year.
Port Adelaide looked far from it.
Yeah.
And people are saying now about the succession plan, about how Josh Carr can't take it over because obviously we got smashed in the midfield this week. All right, well, he can't. He's our midfield coach. If he takes over, we're screwed again. People are asking for a fresh face.
All right. Well, who do you think? Do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? Kane Corns on the whatever the fucking show was, saying that they should be looking as high as possible, and then they're going down from there.
Yeah,
so
so
saying
they're
like John
saying-
Longmire and Chris Scott.
Yeah, well, they're not going.
Yeah, I don't think John
I
Longmire
think
is going to be
that
coming to Adelaide.
You're not looking at that. I think, like, you look at the people that are not on the not in the position as a coach at the moment. You look at Nathan Buckley, see if he wants to come home to to Port Adelaide. We've seen over the last couple of months that he's looking, or that he's in line
may
for
be
the
open.
Tassie job.
Yeah,
So he could be inclined to look at somewhere else.
yeah.
There's some other play even like Adam Muse last year. He's done his apprenticeship, if you want to call it that, like people do, and he's got his job now. You got to look at those people that have been doing the hard yards, the apprenticeships.
Do you think Josh Carr can be the next coach?
I think he still can. I think that part of it was an overreaction. Oh, well, he's the midfield coach. We got smashed in the midfield. If he comes in as the head coach, it ruins everything. If succession plan has worked in the past, it's worked for the Swans with John Longmire.
But they had a premiership and had a massive run.
You look at Paul Roos in the Melbourne.
Yeah, I mean
Slightly
that's probably fair. But I mean but if they're looking at a succession plan, they needed to start it 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes.
Starting it, they can't start it now because Ken Hinkley, that means he's lasting this year.
Yeah.
And look, I hate when people say, "Oh, that's his job. They need to get rid of him," because I think it's it's a cop out to fucking just automatically say sack him, fuck off.
Yeah.
But he's had so long now.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not just a knee jerk reaction to this, and as someone who lives in South Australia, having a South Australian team down, it's a very hard place to be in. It's not like, I think we even mentioned this last week, the Crows. North Melbourne, it doesn't really matter if they're bottom because they're not a massive relevant club in Victoria. No one really, it's not that they don't care about them, but they're a small club there.
There's 10.
There's 10 other teams.
There's 10 others.
So no one
9
cares.
Others, so.
North Melbourne can take time to rebuild.
Yeah.
And I don't think Port Adelaide are obviously at that stage. And we've obviously seen teams before be in a spot where they just need a new coach. Most recent example is Collingwood and Craig McRae. They needed a new coach, they needed a revamp, and 2 years later he won them a flag. I'm not saying that Port Adelaide can just get a new coach and they'll win a flag, but something does need to change.
Yeah.
And Ken Hinkley is the one thing he has had for a long time. It's probably the reason why he's been there for so long is the relationship with the players.
Yeah.
He's obviously been like a father figure to a lot of them, but it's also probably been a big part of his, I wouldn't say a downfall, because I think that he's obviously been a very good coach for Port Adelaide. He's probably been their best without winning a premiership. Mark Williams obviously would be their best, I would say. You can't really take it away from Choco, but he's probably their second best, I would say, ever. And even then, Choco towards the end wasn't the greatest. Maybe an idea would be to bring him back as like a support. He's obviously been at Melbourne for a very long time. Maybe he'd be open to coming back to Port Adelaide and helping out as a coach in the come up. I don't know. I'm sure there would be some way, like Paul Roos obviously did. I wouldn't say he would coach again, but he could sit in the. I don't know why they haven't ever reached out to him and try and get him back to help Ken Hinkley. I don't know why that hasn't been an option. I'm not saying, I think it's too late to do that now, but I think that could be an option that they could have looked at. Obviously, like I said, like from an outside perspective, who lives in South Australia, it's obviously very hard when one team is doing bad because the other one will pile on top of you. Right now, Port Adelaide is sitting in the 8, but they're not exactly thriving. When both teams in SA are doing bad, it's not very good at all.
No.
Sorry, by the way, for all the dog noise. Okay, they're just rowdy and annoying. Deal with it. Sorry. If you follow, maybe we'll get some soundproofing in here. We've got one panel there. Anyway, but on Port Adelaide still, I think that there is still some issues that they need to sort out. But if you're a coach in the making coming to this team, you're walking into a bit of a dream. I'm looking at it right now. Defence needs some work. Their midfield, that's a 10-year midfield to come. Rosie, Butters, Horn Francis, Willem Drew. Obviously, they do need some work, and they do need to work on their running of games, plot running defensively and stuff. But the players are there.
Yeah.
Their forward line, Georgiades, Marshall, that's a forward line you can work with, 2 talls.
Lord.
Ollie Lord as well. And Jordan Sweet there with Solo as a ruckman. You can work with that. I mean, it's not as good as Damien Hardwick walking into the Gold Coast, but it's a pretty good list to walk into right now. So if you're a coach and you want a new job, or something. I'm not saying... I don't know why you'd mention Chris Scott or fucking... Look, Chris Scott may be a chance, but I highly doubt it. 99% no way in fucking hell. John Longmire's 100% no way. And that's not just because I'm a Swans fan. That's because he's lived in Sydney his whole fucking life.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say Chris Scott would be a maybe... Sorry, not even a maybe. Just a 1% chance is because Geelong are on a bit of a down now. Would he want to rebuild a team again? And I'm not saying Geelong have to fully rebuild, but he'd have to get him back down a little bit to then go back up. Yeah. Is he ready to do that? I don't know. A very similar talk was like Alistair Clarkson just before he left.
Yeah.
Is he ready to take him back down and back up? No. And Damien Hardwick is why when he left Richmond. Did they want to take him down and go back up? He didn't want to. That's why he went to the Gold Coast. So I don't think that that's a real look at it. I don't think Chris Scott's the option, obviously. If I was looking at it, I know Don Pike just moved to West Coast. I know he was a former Crows coach, but he showed something at Sydney as a coach.
Yeah.
As an assistant coach. He changed it. He was like one of the big catalysts in changing them from a defensive stoppage team that was dull and boring to one of the more exciting teams in the comp right now. He was one of the big helps in John Longmire revamping the Swans lineup. Yeah. So I'm not saying that Don Pike just moved to the West Coast and he was a former player there. I'm not saying he can get out of there, but if he was an inkling of him having an option of going, look at him. Dean Cox, obviously for the Swans, he's another option as an assistant. You're looking at the top clubs right now. Collingwood, you got Justin Lepich, who was pretty hard done by when he was a Lion as the coach. Brendan Bolton, probably not, but even then, he's at Collingwood. He's been growing as well. These are the assistants you need to look at. And I'm not saying you need to go for someone who was a former AFL coach. I think, look at Adam Kingsley as well. He did his apprenticeship, like you said, and he's one of the better... I mean, he came in last year and he's a revelation. There's got to be options out there. Unfortunately, he's done a massive job for Port Adelaide. And you can't... I hated the booing. And I don't mind people booing. Like, fucking do what you want. But the guy took you out of fucking turmoil. Yeah. Him and David Koch. You got to respect that. But I think he's taken this group as far as he can. And maybe he'll get another job in the future. Maybe he'll learn from a couple of the mistakes that he has made. I wouldn't put that past him. I feel like he's definitely got another coaching caper in him. But right now, I think Port Adelaide's... I feel like even the players now are kind of dropping off a bit. I think it feels like they know that they want to win a premiership. And I think maybe they've stopped playing for him. And I think last year, they went and played for him. And they dropped off towards the end of the year. I think now they're just... I wouldn't say given up. And I don't think that you should be calling for the players to stop playing for them, because I think that's crap. They should be playing every single game, like for the jumper, more than just the coach or for anyone. But I think they need to be playing for the football club, not so much Ken Hinkley. And I feel like that's droned on too long now.
Yeah. I think that he was just not... He was the father figure... But he wasn't the one that would give you the spray when they needed to. And
the tough love.
Yeah, the tough love. And for a game against the Lions, a 20-year anniversary game that you just wanted to show some bloody effort, like the 2004 Grand Final team did, and won the Grand Final, that was a dismal performance against a team that was 13th last week.
Yeah.
To a team that was in the 8.
Yeah.
And it looked completely different. It looked opposite. And... for the returning players who showed the guts and passion for the jumper, that was utterly pathetic performance.
Yeah, I can see like the frustration from... I mean, I've heard the frustration from you for a while. Like, I mean, we probably haven't talked about it a lot on here because we don't really talk a lot about just Port Adelaide or just our teams. We talk about other ones as well because, we want to try and take the light away from our teams, especially when they're going poorly.
But after after that performance and... someone had to say, and yes, we're two idiots in it here, but we're also from South Australia. We also know what it's like to be in the SA media. We listen to it every night.
Well, and I try not to, but I do know what you mean. It's a very big. It's like a cauldron.
And like people in Victoria don't really understand what it is like to be in a two-town, footy state like it is in WA. And in WA...
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who listen from WA who would understand where that's coming from.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe a little bit different because West Coast have had a lot of this success and Fremantle haven't yet. For Fremantle, I'm sure they'd be laughing over West Coast before, the last couple of years because they've been on the bottom of the ladder. But I bet you there'd be a lot of West Coast fans who would be understanding of like being on bottom sucks when you're in a 2-team town.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder for me because I barrack for a team that's out of the state. So I don't really know. But also, Sydney obviously aren't in a football state. I think it's definitely growing in Sydney. It's definitely growing in Queensland. But also the NRL's growing a lot in those spots as well.
Yeah.
So it's still a bit different. But having a full state of a 2-club town, it's fucking difficult. Very interesting to see how Tasmania go with it as well. Because, I mean, obviously there'll be the honeymoon period over a couple of, 4 or 5 years. But if they don't start to go... Interesting to see what happens with that. Hopefully they do. But I think that's basically what we'll leave with the Port Adelaide stuff. I think we've basically covered all the points. Who would be your dream coach for Port Adelaide if they were to pick someone else?
I would have said Damien Hardwick last year, but that didn't happen. I wouldn't mind that Dom Pike suggestion, but I think you need someone who will give you a different outlook. Because we've had the same contested game for so long, and if contested ball doesn't win us the game, we don't win. And we need something more than that.
Okay, alright. Josh Carr in or out?
I still think in. I really do. I think that, everyone's calling for his head, he can't do it because they lost last week. I think a huge call. It's like... 3 weeks ago, Port supporters were saying Josh Carr is the man. After one bad performance, yes, it was a terrible, pathetic performance, but because it was the midfield they'd done, it's like...
That's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on, and we'll go on to the Flog of the Week. Now, we didn't have one. We just put this up before the podcast started, but we both agree with this one.
Yeah.
So, this week, the Flog of the Week has gone to... the AFL media department, or whoever it is, who sent a message to the Instagram page, AFL Central, threatening copyright infringement. So, look, obviously copyright, it's a great thing to have because people shouldn't just steal your content. That's obviously fair enough. If someone was to steal a whole video and just put it online, fair enough, fuck you. Don't do that. If someone was to post a full AFL game... or full highlights of the game, I don't really like that either. With nothing added to it.
Yeah.
But if you're adding content to it, like the Swans video that I made, I added stuff to it. I added different editing. That almost got copyright claimed as well. And it's like I'm adding to it. It's not like I'm fucking just putting the whole game out there by myself and just reposting it.
Yeah.
Whatever. And obviously that's a lot different to what AFL Central was doing. He was being a full-on news reporter for AFL stuff. And I think he posted a couple of AFL game clips or something. And what happened was the AFL came down and basically said, stop doing that. Or we're going to copyright strike you. So his statement was, I wanted to update you on the recent development concerning my page. The AFL has reached out to me regarding the use of match footage in some of my posts. They have requested that I remove this content due to copyright concerns, and therefore I will be changing the name to avoid any confusion around affiliation with the AFL. Hey, if anyone had... I don't think anyone's ever had that thought. So I understand that he's obviously had to write that for a reason.
Yeah.
But... if the AFL, if I'm going to sit there and say, oh, you're taking followers from us, you're taking away eyes from us, fuck off, you are. Everyone knows the official AFL page, and everyone knows the AFL Central page. The AFL Central one's better. That's why. Anyway, he goes on to say, I respect the AFL's rights and am currently working on to address their concerns. My goal has always been to celebrate and share my love for the game with fellow supporters, not to infringe on any rights. As a part of this, I'll be changing my name from AFL Central to Cinch Footy. So if you haven't followed that yet, or you don't know, you haven't understood that, that's the new AFL Central location page. Yeah, it's not really new, it's just the same. It's just changed the name and changed the profile. And it'll be focusing on bringing in great content without using AFL match videos. Again, he's not reposting a fucking whole video.
Yeah.
I don't even remember him doing it, to be honest. But even if he did, he's posting... The most you can put on a fucking Instagram is a minute. If he puts a minute video on fucking there, who cares? He's not taking it away from AFL.
Yeah.
Now, I understand it may be a little bit of advertisement infringement as well. They're getting annoyed. Or we're not getting enough video... Macca's isn't getting enough of their advert on that one highlight that we had. When the Macca's player of the game, or the fucking stupid thing. Oh, we're not getting that advertisement. It's like, bro, no one's going to Macca's because you posted a highlight on the AFL app or AFL Instagram page. Fuck off. Anyway, I also want to remind everyone that I have no association or affiliation with the AFL. This page has always been and will continue to be fan-driven community. Again, I don't think that's been an issue. I mean, I get probably he's writing that just in case, but I feel like no one's ever thought that.
Yeah.
Maybe when you first join Instagram, you're like 12, 13 years old, which you shouldn't be on Instagram anyway. You may think that's the AFL official page that's got a lot of followers, but in his profile, I remember it was even before he changed it all this, it did yours used to stay not affiliated with the AFL. That's the first thing you see. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, that's fair enough. We'll fix it up. That's fine. And he ends off and says, it's the end of the AFL Central era, but the beginning of the Cinch footy era. And this is where it kind of annoys me because he's... Oh, I don't know him. I've never messaged him. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He posts a lot of stuff that's like the AFL stuff don't do. Yeah. That's fair enough. It's like very much a reporter, but he seems like a nice guy, and by no means would he ever have done it for like... He posts a lot of other stuff as well. Like he posts like local footy stuff every now and then, information on the VFL, like different players' stats and stuff. And the one big thing he did was in the fucking match sim games, he posted all the fucking statistics of it. Yeah. He compiled all of it into his page because the AFL were too fucking lazy to do it. So if you're going to get a fan community to fucking do it, and now you're like, oh, you're stealing our 30-second clip from Jamara Ugelhagen taking a mark. Get over yourself. Who cares? He's just bringing more eyes to the game. Get over it. Yeah. Like I said, copyright's obviously a great thing to have, and you need to have it because people would just steal and post shit on the internet without fucking putting any sort of like thought to it. Not the original, like stealing people's original stuff and just posting it. But that's not what he was doing. He never did that. And for the AFL to threaten him, oh, we're going to copyright all your shit, we're going to copyright your page, and threaten his page getting taken down, which would have had hundreds of thousands of followers, is fucking ridiculous. So anyway, that was a pretty easy pick for the Flog of the week. We were kind of struggling for a bit, but when we saw that, we were like, don't worry. AFL standing up. The AFL media team. Anyway, this is going to be a bit long, this episode, but don't worry, we're going to keep on going. Of course, now guys, with the end of all of that being said, the Flog of the Week done, we will get into our tips for round 16, and finally we are back to a full round of tips. So 9 games this weekend, of course. Starting on Friday night, we have the Lions up against the Demons. I have gone the Lions. On Saturday, I have gone the Bulldogs over North Melbourne, the Swans over the Dockers, Collingwood over the Gold Coast Suns. On Saturday night, I have gone the Crows over the Giants and the Bombers over the Cats. And on Sunday, I have gone Port Adelaide over St Kilda, Carlton over Richmond, and in the final game, I have gone Hawthorn over the West Coast Eagles. What are you going with this week?
So, Friday night, I've went the Lions over the Demons, the Dogs over North Melbourne to start Saturday, Swans over the Dockers, Collingwood over the Suns. Saturday night, I've picked the Giants over the Crows, Geelong over Essendon, Port Adelaide over St Kilda, Carlton over Richmond, and to finish the round, Hawthorn over West Coast.
Cool. All right, so we've got, I think, 1 or 2 different this week. So first we'll start with the Swans game. I think this is a big game for both teams. I think Fremantle can definitely stop them on attacking football. And I think it's just I think this big game is going to be on the factor of consistency from Fremantle side. We've seen a lot of their ups and downs this year. They've been able to have some really big performances against some teams and then just drop off the face of the earth like against the Bulldogs a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I think Fremantle can give Sydney a real shake here. Again, I feel like everyone's just trying to pick when the Swans are going to drop a game. I've tipped them and you've tipped them this week. I don't think it'll be this week, but I think there's every chance that Fremantle could be the team to knock them off. Yeah. They're going to have to beat Sydney's midfield though. Yeah. And then have to defend gallantly.
They don't. Freo don't tend to do it week in, week out. Yeah. Their midfield.
I think their midfield matches up really nicely against the Swans. I think Hayden Young's definitely that sort of bursting player. You know, the grunt work from Sarong and Brayshaw. I think that can definitely work. Maybe their second string midfielders really aren't the best. Like, Fife's obviously a long way past it now. Matt Johnson's probably a year or two off being his best. I think James Jordan will probably go to Jordan Clark again. That's what he did last time. He'll shut him down. That's probably where I'm looking at it. Alex Pearce, if he is out, I think it's going to be very hard to see Fremantle winning this game.
I think that's the game. I think that's the player that, if they've got any chance of winning Freo, he has to play.
Yeah.
If he doesn't play, there's no hope for him.
Yeah, I feel like that. We said it earlier in the podcast, but Alex Pearce being out would mean that even though Sydney don't have the most potent tall forward line, without him it being the general down there, they may be a little bit out of sync, which may be the big issue in that game. So I understand that. So one of the differences we had was the Crows over the Giants. I've picked the Crows on the fact that it's at Adelaide Oval. I know they haven't had the best record there this year, but the major reason why I've picked them is the Giants, I feel like, are just a bit off at the moment. And the Crows simply have to respond. I feel like they get Taylor Walker back this week. It looks like the Giants will probably get back Sam Taylor for their sake.
Yeah.
But I think that Taylor Walker just gives them something a little bit extra. That does mean that the best defender of the Giants has to go to Walker, which means that Fogarty probably gets away. I feel like, though, the Crows, they had a response in the first half against the Swans last match. But in the end, they fell off. I feel like against a team that's like the Giants, who aren't in as good a form as the Swans, obviously, I feel like if they can get a good performance out of their better players, like Rory Laird had a pretty down year. Rankin coming back in the first half and a bit was very good for the Crows. If he can play well, if Dawson can have another good game, he had a very good first 3 quarters against the Swans, then kind of tapered off when they went off. If they can do that, I feel like the Crows will have a more potent forward line. Their midfield does have to respond. And I think that the Crows' defence this year has actually been really good. So I think they can stand up against the Giants' forwards.
Yeah. I think the Giants win. I think Toby Bedford is a big player in this game as a tagger. I think he'll go to Dawson. I'm pretty sure he'll go to Dawson. I would be surprised.
Do you think that Dawson's a bit more of a bigger body, though? Because I think the last week he went against Chad Warner, and Chad Warner kind of rode him around a bit in the second half.
Yeah, but
I think if Bedford does go to someone, he probably goes to maybe I wouldn't say Laird, but maybe Rankin if he goes to someone, which I mean is definitely a good option for him.
Yeah, but
he has to kick goals against him too, and mate, if Rankin takes him forward, it's going to be
that's the thing. I don't think that's. I think the better option is Dawson, and that's. I think like you said, Sam Taylor should be back. Jack Buckley, I think, will take Taylor Walker, and they'll match up well with Fogarty on Taylor. I think that their defence will hold up a bit better on the Crows forwards.
The last game I wanted to take a look at was the Cats up against the Bombers. So you've picked the Cats, is that right? I've picked the Bombers. Why do you pick the Cats?
Well, for one thing, they have a shithouse record against the Cats. They have won like the last 6.
This is a different Bombers team, though.
Yes, but also, I think that last week, Geelong were a bit sluggish off the bye. I just can't trust Essendon yet because they haven't beaten a big side. I just don't trust them yet. And on the big stages of the MCG, Saturday night, prime time, I think Geelong could actually show something.
With Dangerfield being out, though, do you think they're still going to be okay in the midfield? Because Essendon's midfield does stack up. If Geelong are any chance, they're going to have to at least be even in the midfield.
I think they're bringing Conway because Sam De Koning just isn't a ruckman.
Yeah.
And they can't afford to do that against Draper or Todd Goldstein, whoever it is.
Yeah.
Even if it is both. Tom De Koning just dominated.
Yeah.
They can't afford Sam De Koning to go in the ruck.
They can make him a second ruck, I don't mind that, but they can't make him a first ruck like
No.
they tried to last week. I think they was just throwing him in the deep end and just wasted it, really.
Yeah.
But yeah. On the Essendon side, I just think they're in really good form at the moment. Haven't played a lot of big sides, but they have played well. And I mean, they can only beat the teams that are in front of them. My thought about it. Zach Merritt is one of the best players in the comp right now. I mean, obviously he's always been, but he's doing a lot more with it now. Like I think I said last week in the review, he had 5 direct goal assists. Yeah. He's using the football. He's involved in most goals for them, and I think that Geelong really don't have anyone to go with him. Yeah. So I think he's going to dominate. I feel like the midfield battle, Essendon win pretty comfortably, and the Cats last week against Carlton's midfield got smashed. Essendon's probably isn't as good, maybe. Like if you're ranking them, you say Carlton's like top. Essendon's probably a couple of rungs down. I think that they're just tougher. Jai Caldwell's having a massive year as well. You know, they're just a lot more bigger bodies there. I feel like that's where Essendon's going to get the game won. So, of course, with that being said, guys, let's move on. We'll talk about the AFL tipping ladder, of course, for the comp this year, of course, with the channel. Right now, I got 5 last week. I've dropped down to 6th. I don't think I was 6th last week. Yeah, I definitely wasn't sick last week. That's not good. Anyway, we do have a new leader. He is equal leader, and I think he's jumped in the lead before. Paul has jumped equal first with Brandon, both on 89 tips. They've definitely got a bit of a gap now. They're both 4 tips in front of third spot, which is 85 tips. You've jumped up a little bit. You're still in 8th, but you've jumped up a little bit more. You're 2 tips behind me, so you're coming.
Yeah. I think that now with 9 games, I think that you can jump the ladder pretty quickly, but you can also go down pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think this is where it's going to separate now. I'm 6 tips off the pace. You are 8 tips off the pace from top spot. I feel like it's pretty much done.
I think it's a 2-horse
It's going to be
race.
hard now.
It's a 2-horse race.
Yeah, I think it's now Paul or Renan who's going to win it. Harvey was up there for a while, but he only got 3 last week and dropped right back down. He's just above me. I know he was nearly top for a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, he had a pretty poor week last week. He tipped Geelong against Carlton, which is I don't know why you'd do that. He picked North Melbourne against Melbourne, which was almost a perfect pick.
That would have been nearly perfect.
Yeah, that would have been nearly perfect. But yeah, he also picked Port Adelaide against Brisbane, which I should have
you
done
did
either.
as well, which I don't know why. You should have got sick. You should have got them all.
Yeah, I should have got them all. I'm pretty dumb.
I tipped the Giants. I thought that was a game that Sydney would drop. But obviously, the Swans
Keep on chugging along. Just keep on chugging along.
Yeah.
But guys, that is our tips for this week. Make sure to let us know down below if you think any differently, what your tips are for this week as well. But let's move on to the final part of the podcast, which of course is our AFL Fantasy Chat. So looking at it last week, I got 1,864, so was ranked nearly in the top 20,000, whoop-de-doo. Not exactly a great week from me. I did have a couple of players, I did have to play a couple of players out, unfortunately, and like I had to play some players that I wouldn't usually in, like Toby Pink, who got 25, the debutant for Melbourne in Brown, who played 5 minutes and got 8 points, Clayton Oliver.
He won the game for Melbourne.
Yeah, true. But unfortunately, it doesn't help in the AFL fantasy front. Clayton Oliver got 26, got absolutely demolished by Will Phillips. But even though with all those bad things, I had a couple of good things go my way. Of course, I did have Harry Sheasel 111, Yelly Yo 117, Young 104, Jai Caldwell coming to my team this week, 126. I think that was his highest score of the year. Tom Green with a 127, came out of fucking nowhere. Took Miller with a 130. Brody Grundy in massive form with the 122. Sam Flanders with the 111. So I had some really good performers as well. And back on the winners list. I dropped off for 1 week, as the Sydney Swans will eventually do. You have to have a drop off before you go and win the flag. I'm not saying that.
Yeah. Same thing.
So because of that, though, I've jumped into my highest position for the year. I've jumped into 6th spot on the ladder. It's just come out of nowhere. You just can't count me out.
Can you get to the top 4?
So top 4 right now. What, the AFL fantasy one?
Yeah, how many games are you behind from the top 4?
1.
Ooh,
One win. So I'm not too far away. I could get the double chance. We'll talk about the ladder in a minute. But yeah, I'm 6th spot right now. Looking okay. And this week I play against Seymour Bush. So I really don't want to beat him. I love his name. But he is in 9th. So if I lost it, I would probably drop out of the 8. But
I need that to happen, actually. I need you to beat him.
So looking at my trades for this week, though, I have done a downgrade and an upgrade. I've got rid of Logan Morris. He's done really good to get to his price of 3,786. But I've gone down. I've got to Logan Evans for Port Adelaide. I hope he fucking plays. He's actually one of the few bright shining lights for Port Adelaide last week.
A lot of Port Adelaide supporters, I know this is like fan MVP, but they said it was Logan Evans. He was the best player from Port Adelaide.
His first game.
Yeah, I know. That's how bad Port Adelaide were last week.
Yeah, so hopefully he stays in. I think he will. I feel like that. I hope Port Adelaide don't do a thing of like, oh, we're going to drop some players and then drop him.
Yeah.
It's like, drop some fucking senior players. Anyway, so I've done that, and then I've got rid of Riley Bonnet, and I've picked up Ed Richards. Now, Ed Richards may surprise some people. I didn't really realise this in picking him up, but he's only owned by 1% of the people in AFL Fantasy. Now, his average doesn't scream out much. It's 81.8, again. And the last 3 games, it's 85.3. So, nothing really screaming out at you. But his role has changed drastically in the past few weeks. He obviously did have that concussion against the Sydney Swans, which gave him only 66 and out. But he scored that in 1 half.
Yeah.
And he was the best player on the ground in that game. So without that game, his last 3 scores that were full games is 141 against the Tigers, 97 against the Giants, and then 93 against the Dockers. So I think Ed Richards is a really good look at, guys, if you are looking for a defender/midfielder to go to, because his price at the moment is only $7.59, which isn't exactly a low price, but it's definitely something you can look at. Now, obviously, a lot of people are talking about the Clayton Oliver to Connor Rosie trade, and I was thinking of doing that, but I just couldn't afford it this week. I'm actually planning on doing that maybe next week. But right now, that's my trades for this week. And right now, looking at my team, there's only really one player on my team that was like a reserve player at the start of the year, which is Darcy Wilson for the Saints. So that's probably the only one I really need to look at getting rid of right now. But I think Clayton Oliver's a more priority, so I'm going to look at that next week. What are you looking at for this week? What did you do?
So last week I got 1850, so ranked 20,000 plus. So wasn't great.
You just lost to me.
Yeah, which was great. But I had some good performances. I had the Tom Green 127, Lockie Neal 135, Took Miller 130. Brody Grundy, 122, and Caldwell, 126. Also, the Flanders, 111 as captain. But I had some down performances, obviously. I had Jake Rogers, who came in this week with 35, Jeremy Sharp with 39.
Jeremy Sharp, he's fucking fallen off a cliff, hasn't he?
I thought I kept him again because I was like, well, he's played well. The last 2 times he's played at Optus, he's got 100. I was like, all right, well, he's played at Optus, maybe he'll play well. Didn't do it.
Didn't go out on that wing.
No. And I had to play some rookies like Lee Kalir. He got 62, so I'll take that. And the one shining light for me was Thulstrup for the Demons. Played a full game, he got 72.
He was at 40. He was at like top score. He was 34 at quarter time. Yeah, I do remember that. But
I think that, him being priced at, was less than 250. To go to 290 in 1 week was pretty good. So looking at my league this week, I did win. I won by 18 points. I was a bit hesitant because if I won, because he had Errol Goulden on VC, which
my opponent had that too.
Yeah, I was like, oh fuck, and it didn't update till the last game, obviously, because it's just such a wanker. But luckily, the guy had Oliver, who got 26, so that saved me.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, it would have definitely. If he just had a decent game of 60, you would have lost.
Yeah, and I'm lucky I had so many players in the last game for Freo and the Gold Coast because I had Sarong, Miller, Rogers, Sharp, and Flanders and Young. Well, Flanders was my captain and Sexton, so I had like 7 players there.
Yeah,
which helped me a lot. So you're looking at that. That's all right. And
you trades this week.
The trades. So I got rid of Joe Richards. I just
couldn't hold him much longer.
Yeah, I felt like last week you were saying you should get rid of him, and I was like, I was going to get rid of Lee Kalir, but because he played such a good game and he's got his pre-game's went way down, I thought, well, I'll get rid of Joe Richards. He's not going to come back yet.
Even if he does come back, even if he's not injured, he may just go through the VFL for a bit because some of the other seniors players are coming back too.
Yeah. I got Logan Evans. Yep. I got rid of Jeremy Sharp and I did get Ed Richards. I thought, well, that's good. I was thinking of getting rid of Tom Green, but after that performance, it was either Jeremy Sharp or Tom Green. I was like, nah, that's a shit performance for Jeremy Sharp again. I've got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And then next week, looking at my team, the only player rookie I'm playing on my field now is Dowling.
Yep. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It's either him or I can pull Thulstrup, but I thought against Brisbane, I think it's a bigger team that I don't know if he'll play as good.
Yeah.
Against the Giants, I think he's played some good games against the Swans before the bye, so I thought, well, surely. So this week I've got to play number 15th position, so I should win.
Yeah.
And the last couple of weeks, people around my position have lost games, so I could still get. So at the moment, I'm in 11th, and like you got Seymour Bush. That will help me if you win that because I can jump him.
Well, looking at it right now, Brad is still on top, the Sydney Swan supporter. So congratulations, mate. We've got Shillings for Billings in second, so he's been up there for quite a while now. Grundy's Undies has come out of nowhere to jump into third spot. He's been in there the last couple of weeks, but he's had 5 wins in a row, so congratulations to him. I'm currently sitting in 6th, and you're in 11th, but fighting hard with the last 4 out of the last 5 wins. Still Mumbus down the bottom, which is also a Swan supporter, so we're covering both ends of the ladder right now. That's good to see. But guys, that is all we have for you today at the Boundary Riders podcast. Of course, make sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy. We're growing this channel like crazy, so thank you so much for the support. If you are on Spotify as well, make sure to leave us a follow so you're notified on the podcast, the review, and the trade videos we drop. And of course, leave us 5 stars because that would be really nice of you. But guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll catch us all next week.
See you guys.